Hello, I didn't see you there. Today I got a video I'm pretty excited about. It is about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is one of my favorite all-time books. It essentially helped me get started coming from a family who didn't talk a lot about investing and generational wealth and wealth building and anything like that. Once I got my hands on this book, it literally opened my mind and my eyes to an entire different universe about work and money and how to handle your finances, and importantly, how to generate wealth. So let's jump right into it, starting with chapter 1, which is the rich don't work for money. So in chapter 1, Rob goes on to essentially eviscerate the middle class. And I had never thought about it, but a lot of people want to get to the middle class or the upper middle class because it's like the American dream, right? It's this cushy position to be in where you got a really good pension and a job. But if you really start to think about it, the middle class is one of the classes that, from a financial standpoint, has the least amount of benefits because they're paying almost as much in income taxes as the upper class without as much financial benefits, and they don't have none of the financial benefits of the lower class, like the government programs and grants to help them. So essentially, it's the class where like you're on your own, and it's gonna take you a minute to try to get out of that. So in chapter 1, the rich don't work for money, Rob mentions that his rich dad offered him a job when he was just a young boy. And after a couple of weeks, he was supposed to be learning by Rich Dad, but Rich Dad didn't teach him anything. So Rich Dad convinces him to work for free, which is crazy. But in this, we learn that money itself should always be secondary when you get a job. In my other review of Steal Like an Artist, we talk about this where like there's this concept that if you're gonna be employed and you're gonna have a job, the paycheck is great, but you should always be learning something and developing a skill that's gonna essentially help you build or move up this like proverbial ladder, right? Even if it's not in the job or in the company itself, it's essentially of life. So Rob talks a lot about the rat race and the middle class and like how we're essentially spinning like a rat in this proverbial wheel of life, and we're not going anywhere. You work, and you build, and then you get up and you do it all over again, and essentially you don't get anywhere. And he talks about that because we're employees, essentially everything that we're doing and all of our profit from our work is going to our bosses and the business owners that we work for, and not for us. He talks about all the mantras that we learn as young adults, and we kind of stick to it, right? Because of fear of society's disapproval. And in the book, he mentions a few of them, which is things like you have to go to school and you study really hard. And if you study really hard, you're gonna go get your degree and then specialize in your specific field. Stay in your position or in your job as long as possible so that you can get these raises, and focus on your 401k and your pension and build that so that when you retire, you have some additional funds to live off of. And all of that is still preached on today. But if you follow Rob on like Instagram or Facebook, or you see his videos, which he's essentially everywhere, you'll see that he teaches entirely different ways to do all of this. Instead of going to school and being focused on like an A+ student, be a B student, because there's a lot of life outside of school, and there's a lot of other things that school is going to teach. And if you're like head in these books all day, you're not going to have time. You're just not going to have time to learn about life and get life experience. He talks about being general and getting general experience. Learn a little bit about everything. You build your mental models, which if you're familiar with Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, that is how he kind of lives his life, is building these mental models. And then he solves these problems based on these mental models that he has. So essentially he's saying if you want to be a successful investor, know a little bit about everything versus just having one vertical and one field that you specialize in. Instead of focusing on your 401k or in your job that who knows when you're going to get a raise and how much that raise is going to be. By the way, I remember my first raise was like 7 cents after I worked for a year at a company called Fresh Lanes out of Dallas, Texas. So essentially it was like way beyond or way under what inflation was, right? So me working there for a year and getting that small paycheck bump, I actually, because of inflation, I was making less money. So he says, start a business, take control of your own One of the biggest lessons I got from this book, and I think the pandemic proved that, is to always have multiple incomes or multiple streams of income, whether it's a part-time job or a hustle or a gig that you have that's always like essentially generating revenue apart from your day job or apart from your number one income. He goes on to break down right in chapter 1 the cash flow statements between the rich and the middle class, or the rich and the poor. And you'll see that like for the wealthy person or the rich person, they have multiple streams of income. And then those streams of income actually go into investments first, is like the first thing they spend on. So they take their money and then they invest it. And out of the lucrative portion of those investments, they then buy things and pay for rent and pay for their car and the purses and everything else. Whereas like the poor person has one stream of income that they then spend first, and whatever is left over, they try to turn that into an investment. So it's shifting that mindset. Because remember, from a wealthy person, if you look at their cash flow statement, they're investing money that is essentially going to become income again. So the more money that they invest, the more income they have, and the more income they have, the more cash flow that they have based on return from your investments. So then the more cash flow you have, essentially, the more and more and more your wealth is having this like snowball effect. Another important takeaway from this book that I absolutely loved and I didn't understand before I read this book is just the difference between an asset and a liability. And I know that seems simple enough, but I don't think my ideology behind what these things meant anything at the time. So it was important for me to learn this concept because it also changed the way I spend my actual money, right? So if you look at an asset, which is something that you buy that is going to generate more revenue, and a liability is something that is essentially sucking away all of your revenue. So if I were to ask you like something like your car, is it an asset or a liability? Well, it's definitely a liability because it's not generating any revenue, and at the same time you're paying for it, and as you pay for it, it's depreciating in value. But of course, there are apps today like Turo, or maybe you can drive Airbnb. Maybe you can drive Uber with your car. Well, you just took an asset and that was a liability and you actually turned it into a cash flowing asset, right? You took your car and now you rented it out on Turo and you write off taxes on it. And now while your car is just sitting in the parking lot, someone comes, picks it up, and now drives it around, money hits your bank account, the car's back in the parking lot, you just turn that into an asset. So this is a concept that Rob talks about, that the rich invent money. So another favorite part of this book for me, and I know I keep saying that, but there's just so many good things about this book that I have to keep repeating myself. But again, I wish I had this when I was younger, right? Which is also why I'm making this video, because I hope that it benefits you. So he goes on to essentially talk about why you need to open a business and start your own business. First, he talks about changing the way you think about money, explaining his situation, the situation of the middle class, that they're stuck in this rat race. And then he starts walking you through what you can do differently. And starting a business, if you look at maybe the top 90% of people who are considered the wealthiest people in the world today, they did it by starting a business. So Facebook and Musk and Bill Gates and like literally everybody and all these people that we know and come to mind is probably because they started a business or they inherited wealth based on their parents because their parents started a business. And he then starts talking about shifting your mindset from just being an employee to being a business owner and why you should do that. One of the biggest takeaways I got from this book is like, I need to start my business. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to actually figure out how to do that and how to go about doing it. So if you have any questions, drop them below or DM me. I'd be happy to help you out. One of my biggest regrets is like that I did not start this sooner, because there are so many benefits from being a business owner. And by the way, it's a lot easier to start. To me, when I read this in the book, I thought it was like this concept that I'm gonna have to have shares and a board, and like, it's actually not that complicated and not that expensive. And the benefits you get from it are phenomenal. So he gets into it, right? And he starts breaking down like why business owners pay a lot less in taxes and why they have a lot more cash where like they can invest, and why they get more incentives to have more jobs essentially, right? And you can write off so many things, which essentially you're getting for free, because instead of you giving that money away to the IRS, you get to keep it and use it however you want. He even gives this example about like how he bought a Porsche and wrote it off. And I know it's a really popular topic nowadays where people all over TikTok and Instagram talk about how you can buy like a Mercedes G-Wagon and why it's so popular because of the weight class, tax situation where you can write it off. I don't understand it fully, but I spoke with my attorneys about it and my tax advisors, and they told me you can, but like in my case, I work from home. So if the IRS sees that I took all of my deductions on my home office and like, well, I don't travel, right? Because I don't have a real estate business where I'm using my car all the time. And then they see that I also wrote off my car. The IRS is not stupid. So they're gonna know. So just be cautious if you're thinking about doing that, because you essentially need to use the car for business purpose, and you can't just rip off the IRS, or else everybody would be doing that. But if you have a legitimate reason to have a car and write it off, by all means. I just didn't do it because it's also the #1 kind of way that the IRS does these audits, and I just didn't want to be in their crosshairs, so I avoided it. Personally, I think you should too, but if you can find a way to do it legitimately, by all means, start a business and have the IRS pay for your G-Wagon. Congrats. But beyond the Porsche, he talks about if you have a corporation, the way that essentially a corporation's cash flow, right, is structured is they earn money and then they spend money, and then whatever is left over, then they pay taxes on. Whereas if you're an employee and not a business owner, you earn money and then you pay taxes, and then whatever's left over, then you get to spend. When you're a business owner, you get to spend the money first, and then whatever's left over, you pay taxes on that. All right, so we're getting close to the end. Stick around. I have a bonus that I wanna throw out at the end of this video. So another amazing part of this book is just some of the obstacles that Rob kind of covers. He knows the people that are reading this book, and they have challenges and obstacles in their way. So he covers a few of them, and I'd like to in this video as well, because I do think that's important. So the first one is fear of losing money when you're investing. Just a quick reminder that if you have your money sitting in your mattress, that money is losing its value every single day. So you may lose some money when you're investing, and it's not a guarantee that you're gonna make money, but leaving it in your mattress is a guarantee that you will lose money. So just keep that in mind. There's a cynicism that comes with investing, especially in like real estate or Bitcoin and crypto, anything like that. There's always gonna be cynics. There's always, Uncle Bob, a cousin of a cousin of a cousin, who invested $20 in Apple when the market crashed. And well, look, you only lose money in the stock market if you realize one of your gains, which means you took a loss and now you sell that stock at a loss. If you hold on to it, which is kind of like a Warren Buffett strategy, hold on to it a little more, and you'll see that the market has crashed in the past and it has always recovered. So I don't want to cover all of them, but one of the important ones I think he mentions is like arrogance. A lot of people believe that they know everything. They believe that they're already doing everything right, and that limits them from doing things better. It doesn't mean that you aren't in the right path or doing things wrong, but take a moment and take a step back. And every investment that you make, is this the best available investment for me now? Learn as much as possible before, being arrogant about, this is not for me, this sucks. Like, unless you absolutely understand and know the topic in and out all the way through. All right, so lastly, Rob ends the book essentially talking about how to get started, what you need to do, and he gives you a few steps and more reading material, etc. So that's one of the things I want to do now. If you want to participate in a Rich Dad, Poor Dad giveaway, I want you to comment below your favorite portion of this video. Just drop a sentence below. You'll be entered into the drawing. I'm going to do the drawing. I'm going to give away 3 of these books, and I'm going to do it 7 days after this video has been posted. So if you're watching this and it's been after 7 days, I'm sorry, it's a little late, but I'm always going to do these giveaways. So just watch the latest video on my channel, and you can participate. Turn on the subscribe button so that you always get notified when a new video is posted, and that way you always participate in the giveaways. All right, guys, I wish you the best, and I'll see you on the next one.